Hi and welcome to World of
WATSORB.
Part 5 of this Final Fantasy VII and its remake comparison and reviews. So as we board the train in Sector 7, we're heading off to a new main mission, albeit one very similar to the first one. We're off to blow up another MAKO reactor. This time it's in Sector 5.
The terrorist group Avalanche has issued another bomb threat. In response, we have raised the threat level and entered a state of heightened alert. All lines are currently experiencing delays. We anticipate that our arrival in Sector 4 will be later than scheduled.
I really find it's these normal day-to-day things, such as being on a train in the remake, that just make it feel so realistic.
We take the back streets. Once we're inside the facility, it's the same deal as last time.
Head for MAKO storage.
And then blow it all to hell. Let's do this one for Jesse and Wedge. They deserve it.
As we'll see in the original game, Jesse and Wedge do join us on this mission in that, but some slight changes to the storyline here, no doubt to accommodate the extensions to the plot. As with everything in the remake, even just the journey to the reactor mission is expanded upon, actually encompassing 2 whole chapters in the remake, which will be covered in this video.
There's barely anyone on this train, and none of them look happy to be here.
Might stand out as a group. You two stay here.
So with this scene in the original, I thought it exemplified something I recently read about the game's characterisation. To make the characters more realistic, the scenes were added with little arguments and objections here and there to various plot elements, just to show them having their own little personalities, to compensate maybe for the limited graphics. Now, this would slow down the game's progress, but added depth to the characters' personalities. The blocky on-screen avatars given some real physical expression to convey feeling, as we see with Barrett and the Shinra manager here. But despite its any limitations in the original game, I feel it's still always managed to convey the drama of situations, the depth of the characters, of their feelings, and although I must say I always found these scenes with Barrett's rage to be pretty funny at times, we'll see in a few moments how this kind of thing has been translated into the remake. This is something that I really do like about the remake, and how it makes us, well, certainly me, reflect on the original game in a new way. For example, see beyond perhaps the hilarity of Barrett losing his shit, and see how that's really taken forward. However, despite its lack of realism, things like the distrust perhaps of Cloud from Barrett is clear in these scenes here. Now, of course, things are much more drawn out in the remake with the trip to the reactor. On the original game, just these scenes on the train and coming up a couple of scenes in the tunnels en route there. And whilst initially playing the remake through chapters 5 and 6, I did feel pulled to want to get back to the main original story, such is nostalgia's grip. But on reflection, whilst making these videos, I am trying to view it differently. I can certainly see positive aspects in the additions that have been made, and you know, as I try to touch on these as we go through. Things are a little differently laid out dialogue-wise on the train, as we see here, but the overall setup is much the same, with the characters taking spots in the remake, as we'll see, very reminiscent of, if not exactly as per the original game.
They'll be fine.
Maybe, but I won't be until I know for sure.
Be right back.
Thanks.
As you can see, the train scenes are rearranged a bit, and before I leave the carriage, I'll just have a wee quick triple check on the chat to make sure there's nothing different, just in case I miss anything. Something I would often check in the original game, as the characters could often have a little additional line of dialogue here or there.
Keep an eye on Barrett.
And here we see that somewhat funny scene from earlier fully brought to life.
Avalanche is a blight on Midgar.
Huh?
Their bomb threat has thrown our offices into chaos, let alone the reactor itself. It's total insanity! But we won't lose heart. No! Everyone at Shinra agrees. The reactor will stay online.
Is that right?
What? You got a problem with that?
Do I have a problem with that? Oh, you can bet.
He doesn't.
So Cloud stepping in to rein Barrett in there.
Asshole.
But with
No,
that
you're better
comment,
than
we
that.
see it's made clear that Cloud does have a respect for Barrett, albeit still perhaps grudgingly. And there Barrett humming the little victory tune that we would hear after successes in the majority of battles in the original game. First time I think that we heard that in the remake. And at points later on, which maybe we will see throughout my series following a fight or as the team's running on, Barrett will sometimes be heard to hum that tune. And I presume that's going to be as much as we'll hear of it throughout the remake. Perhaps maybe thrown in things like the gold saucer and stuff like that, or the battle arena maybe. Though I contend it's probably one of the best known things in the game, that little tune. So on with the story, and ID scan on the train has thrown up some problems for Avalanche this time round. In the original we simply had to get out of, I think, 3 carriages before the short timers dropped down before we had to jump from the train. This time playing it through, I decided I would just wait and see what happened if I just stayed in the original carriage, how that would affect things. Nothing different, as we will see as things go on, although perhaps costing us in terms of time post the train section in the original, with maybe some extra scenes, screens and scenes to go through. Biggs, Wedge and Jesse, as you see, all still present this time in the original game, and also a little additional high potion there from a little random chap, which is I think the first time I've ever had that again. A game still managing to surprise me 24 years after. And as we prepare to jump, we will see the remake again extends the train scenes.
Take care of him, Cloud.
On it.
We have some added fighting on the carriages, which I think is quite important and adds to the realism of the remake. Realism which is exemplified, I feel, in a scene coming up with Tifa and that Shinra manager from earlier, as they seem to reach a kind of equal understanding, if maybe not quite acceptance of each other.
But I work for Shinra. I'm the enemy.
I don't care. I don't want anyone to die. Please.
I'll look after the others.
My turn.
There's no end to them.
3 unauthorized hostages successfully became neutralizing the threat.
Looks like you're right, soldier boy.
Screw this. The station will be crawling with security. We gotta jump.
Screw that.
Need to slow the train down.
Sounds like a big plan E.
And of course the departure from the train in the original game is maybe not quite as dramatic when compared to today's efforts.
You okay?
The remake adding in some more definitive nods to Cloud and Tifa's burgeoning relationship than I feel was ever shown in the original game. Now, as we're about to diverge away from the original game again for much of the rest of this video, I wanted to comment on that although it may look dated now, though not still without its charm certainly, the graphics for Final Fantasy VII were cutting edge at the time, as was the game itself. The use of all the different styles and also the layering of those effects to create a unique, eclectic look. The game launched the Japanese RPG style of game worldwide and helped progress such behemoths as Pokemon into mainstream culture. I don't think you'd have had Pokemon's success without that. Also, people who worked on the CGI for the game worked on the likes of Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, True Lies and the Star Wars prequels, which for all the jokes can't be argued as not being visually stunning. Now this wee section again, something I didn't see until maybe my third playthrough of Final Fantasy VII. Just by going backwards down the tracks there. It serves as a good wee place for some early grinding in the game, especially with those speed and limit additions in the PS4 re-release, though that siren sound is horrendous.
I felt sure we had them, didn't you?
As we move on into the tunnels properly, we see in the remake that Shinra are still very much aware of where the group are.
Sir.
Return it to the wild.
Yes, sir. Right away.
While so very close in terms of layout in the tunnels, so much more detail in the remake, like the added danger of running trains passing continually.
It's them! We have a visual on the target.
And of course, as we go on into some more battles, always make sure to assess as many enemies as possible. Important for that little character Chadley as we'll progress through the game.
Looks like it's gonna be Plan E.
Go on.
Plan A was if everything went off without a hitch. From the station, it would have been a straight shot to the reactor. Didn't work out, but we knew going in we had to have alternatives. Backup plans, in case we had to get off early. From closer in to further out, B, C, D, and so on.
Up to what?
To E.
Lucky us.
Yeah! You have nothing to worry about, sir. Preparations for the grand finale are proceeding without incident. I have the utmost confidence that everything will play out as you intended.
Sir, analytics reports that the results fall within the admissible range. However, the casualty rate significantly exceeds previous projections.
Remind me what your job is. Is it to question the wisdom of your superiors and bemoan your personal hardships?
Sir?
Huh. Casualty rate. You think I care about the casualty rate? They're pawns in a greater game.
So it sounds there that Shinra are up to something sinister, and anyone who played the original game will probably know what this is in reference to, but I like the way that these events are layered in throughout the story. The wider Avalanche group again hinted at there with graffiti of the dog's stamp, noted about the place as a resistance symbol to help guide the way, essentially help the player see where to go.
Get back!
And here to mirror, I would say, I suppose, the boss fight in the first MAKO reactor mission. This time it's a giant big metal crab that we have to battle. And the game deems it worthy to break out the big guns, and Tifa summons in effort to help take care of the boss here. Unfortunately again though, before I was able to utilise the Hellfire attack from Ifrit.
Pulling out all the stuff now.
All clear.
You stay there.
Let's go.
Sure.
Lo and behold. All aboard.
So we move on towards Reactor 5, but en route we're going to take a little slanted elevator here, which is very reminiscent of another lift like this later on in the original game at Junon Harbour. Another intentional nod, I'm sure, to something that we'll probably see later in the later parts of the remake. I have to say though, also shades of the latter parts of Metal Gear Solid, I would say, but perhaps I digress a little bit again there. On to Chapter 6, Light the Way, and another full chapter of a new side mission, just to bulk out the story. But I must say, with some gloriously detailed plate-eye views of the slums beneath at times.
There's the reactor support pillar.
So what's the plan?
After plan E comes F, G, and then H.
Thought E was the last.
This here is Section F.
We cut through section G and head for H.
A cargo platform in H will get us closer to the reactor. Biggs should be somewhere over there. Looks like the sun's going down on Midgar.
In Final Fantasy VII, this whole section of Midgar was shown purely by this one area coming up, and it was only really on reflecting for this series that I noted here the detail of some of the slums below that you can see. But of course we do have much more to do in the remake. And we see there below again the slums gloriously realised. I like the addition of these sun lamps here, giving some deeper consideration as to the realities of living in a city such as Midgar and the slums beneath. Not something I ever recall really thinking about in 1997, and although seen later, I think I don't recall them ever being referenced in the original game. Also adds a little puzzle quest to put these lights on, slightly Tomb Raider-esque perhaps in its workings. I must admit again though, when playing through this section originally, when playing the remake first time through, I was pining to get back on track with the main story I knew. It does drag on a little perhaps, and it can be easy to get confused as to where you are, where you've been and where you're going. A nice wee addition all the same, if a little bit laboured.
Power supply confirmed. Disengaging locking mechanisms.
Okay, that's that.
Great job, Cloud.
Welcome us just as warmly as before. So, tell you what, the rot runs deep in this damn pizza. Don't mind us, y'all. Just passing through.
Another nice example of how accurate the remake has been in pulling the enemies through for you to fight, and how similar they were or are to their 1997 counterparts.
Whatever you do.
Some other easy little tasks that popped in, like getting past these turbines to eke out every bit of time that it can out of this journey to the reactor.
Section H is just up ahead.
Still, for all it's been drawing out, it gives us these beautiful views, so highlighting the poverty of the slums.
Sure that's the one.
Insufficient power.
You're kidding me.
Needs 3 lights worth, looks like.
But that's all of them, isn't it? Catwalk. And that makes 3. Enough to finally get our cargo platform moving.
Better be.
Okay, let's head on back to the H1
So
side.
after some more light dimming action, which doesn't sound particularly entertaining, does it? We will finally move on to the reactor. Ultimately, I did feel this section of the remake was particularly dragged out. Even putting this part of my video together did become a slight drag, but we soldier on.
Mercy! Wait.
So after a quick chat with Wedge, still present in the original, we head upstairs to meet with Biggs as we see the situation very well parallel between the two games, despite the story differences.
Terrorists jumped off a train. Nice and quiet here, though. So quiet I had no trouble securing your route into the reactor.
You magnificent son of a bitch! Bring it in!
So, where are the others?
Man,
Jessie got hurt and couldn't make it.
Bad?
not so bad she couldn't rope in this guy.
Thanks for stepping up.
It's a job.
Worked out pretty good. You picking that train you did. While Shinra scours Sector 4, you could waltz right on into Sector 5. It's a bit of a squeeze, but it ought to get you where you need to go.
Little dark and foreboding for my taste.
Beggars can't be choosers. Oh, and you'll be needing your grappling guns, of course. All set?
Ready to take on the world and then some.
Make sure everyone gets clear, okay?
Will do.
Okay, y'all. Keep these grappling guns close. Secure them to your belt or whatever so you don't lose them. When we're done, we'll be using these babies to get down safe. All of us.
Got it.
So that's all for part 5. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in part 6, where we'll finally be introduced properly to the Flower Girl and move to set up one of my favourite sections of the entire game, but that's for next time. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.